Good evening and welcome to Kestryl and Company. I am Lady Cassandra, your guest host tonight. Kestryl's still on that folk singing tour, and we miss her a great deal. We'd love for her to be back here doing the show, but you're stuck with me tonight. Tonight's show, we're going to talk about elders. Okay? Now, I know Kestryl has referred to me as an elder. I am Kestryl's elder. I have an elder, and my elder has an elder. There's always somebody who is your advisor, somebody you can go back to and talk to. On tonight's show, we're going to talk to somebody that I have had many nice conversations with, some with tears in my eyes, some with smiles on my face, and that's Elsbeth. Elsbeth, thank you so much for coming to Kestryl and Company.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I'm glad to be here.
Elsbeth, how long have you been in the craft?
Formally?
Formally.
Formally.
Formally and informally.
Well, informally, I think it was an urge from childhood. We always were looking for fairies and finding, as I came along and was very active in my family's church, I kept feeling that something was missing. And it was, to me, the overemphasis on the patriarch, on the male, and there was nothing. The women were just sort of second-class citizens. Not exactly, but they did the cooking and they did all of this sort of thing. When I met Nibor in 1983 was when I discovered this whole world of paganism is still active today. I had grown up on the legends, the myths, and they were a part of my life always, and my favorite research is the early British Isles and early religions, but I didn't know it was active until then. And that was when I began.
Now, how did you get started? Other than meeting with Nibor, you started going to the things that he
Yes.
went to?
Well, no, he didn't go to a lot. He was totally a solitary, but I'm a very gregarious person. And so we started at that point going to various events, and we founded our first group and in Georgia, in Atlanta, because we're down there for 2 months every year doing the Renaissance Fair. We travel as artists and craftspeople and do fairs. Our ministry, if that's what it is very widespread, but not terribly deep because we're never with a group for very long. So we try to contribute. We teach and work with individuals when we're in the area. And that's what it consists of.
Well, what really proved it to me that you have extended family probably just about every place in North America is last year when you had that very bad car accident.
Yes.
And you were laid up. There was people and phone calls coming from all over the country.
That's right.
And people were taking up collections, holding spaghetti suppers and everything else to every place to help out.
I was aware of it, a lot of it by mail and by phone calls, but a lot of it that never got to me in a physical form, I mean in a known form, but frequently I'd be lying in the bed in this brace and the whole thing and feel like I had electricity going all over my body. And I'm in my 60s and the bone grew back completely in 11 weeks. And that's not normal.
Says an awful lot to the healing energy people were sending you.
The healing energy that everyone sent me. This was a case of group healing over the whole country, and I'm grateful for it. And for the money that people sent me because it was a tough time financially too.
Understood.
I was unable to work for about 6 months.
That's what everybody told me.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about the elder priestess and the fact that she represents the crone aspects of the threefold goddess.
Mm-hmm.
The aspects of the goddess are the maiden, of
Yes.
course. The lady, as we usually call her, she's the mother, and we have the crone.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, a lot of people are a little put off by the crone.
She's frightening. She's very frightening. One of her major focuses is she is the escort to death. As an earthly representative, in olden times, as we say, in other times, the old woman, frequently a widow, was the one who laid out the dead, who prepared the body for burial. But of course, she also was the midwife. So that we have both aspects in the crone. The maiden is easy for patriarchal society to accept. She's the lover. She's the gorgeous young woman at the height of her physical appeal. The mother is a very easy aspect of the goddess for patriarchal society to accept because everybody had a mother. And besides, you don't reject that sort of thing.
The family unit.
The family
concept.
unit. And she is the center of that, and we can respect it. But where both the patriarchal religions and the patriarchal society stuck was this frightening, ugly old woman. Imagine this. Long, gray, stringy hair, part of the teeth gone in front, because dentistry was not known for many centuries. A wart or a mole on her face with hairs growing out of it. I sort of clipped mine off for this. Hunched back, very hunched over frequently from osteoporosis.
Probably arthritic.
Arthritic, perhaps, leaning on a cane or a broom as she walks. Dressed in black because that's what's left when all of the other clothes are gone and because it's the easiest thing to keep clean. And what do we have a picture of? A witch. The traditional picture of a witch. And that's the crone, and that's the frightening thing. But she is also the wise woman, the one who has all the wisdom of all of her training and her teacher's training to offer to not only the young people, but to the middle-aged people. She is also potentially the judge. She is the one who says, I hear your side of the problem, I hear your side of the problem, and in my experience and judgment, it teaches me that this is the solution to the problem.
Since I became initiated as a third-degree elder, at my age I thought, well, I usually envisioned the elder as older, maybe a little more gray in their hair. And what I'm finding out, what goes with the job, is not so much the gray hair, but the, what's the word I want to use? I found myself being an arbiter.
Yes, I think frequently.
I found my living room turning into Judge Wapner's court several times. And I was an arbiter. I was that point where that last court of appeal where a couple of priestesses would come to me. Yes. Not the average person in the coven. These were the people that are running the covens, the parish priestesses.
That requires that they have the respect for you and will accept your verdict as a fair one and as a final one. And it doesn't always have to do with gray in the hair. I'm a little late getting my gray too, or at least some of it. Well, but it has to do with the respect the community has for you.
Well, the other thing I think it bothered me a great deal at first with the job, I had a hard time kind of getting it. There was no manual for a crone.
No. We may, in the new spate of books that's coming out on the crone energy, and there are a few, there's still not a manual, but it does talk about what the goddess's crone is, how we see that face of her, and what her earthly representatives are and how they function. And,
speaking of books, like I've got one together right now that has been sorely needed. It's called the Coven, for the lack of a better title, it's called the Coven Manager's Guide. And it's kind of that blend of how to be the Emily Post aspects of running a coven, the hostess aspects of it, and then the other aspects, how to run a tribunal correctly, how to be run a small claims court or single arbiter type of a meeting without being biased. One of the things I found was very difficult as a second-degree priestess, running a congregation, running a coven or a circle or a gaggle or whatever you want to call it, was the fact that I couldn't relax and show my weaknesses to my coven.
That's a given.
Every captain of a ship has ever, or a commander in the military has found that problem.
This is a given.
And I went to my elder.
When you are in a leadership position, your weaknesses are not your important part. What is important for you at that moment are those strengths that the people need. They may be aware of the points that you feel not as competent, but this is not the time to let them come out. I agree. You need to be calm and look like you have everything in control.
Usually that's what I try and do, and then, or what I did try and do, and I would wait until I had a chance to go and call Marie, who was my elder up in New York, and I get on the
always
the
helps.
phone line and say, Marie, help!
That's
You
right.
know?
It always helps to have someone to go to.
And now I'm finding that I've got 5 priestesses under me right now, and
Now, were we going to,
you were going to talk about a Crones Council.
all right, before that, the Order of the Crones.
Yes,
and this
please.
was an idea that came to me after the accident, when I did many, many weeks of meditation and thinking about what directions am I going to take and where can I serve the community best. And it appears to me that it is high time that we raise crone consciousness. Pele is angry at being neglected. Many of the other goddesses in the crone form feel that it is due, time is overdue, that we make ourselves aware and we pay proper tribute and utilize this energy. It's there for us. And one of the ways we might do it, and this is still all theory, because I have not recovered completely enough to put it all into form, and I'm waiting for input too. My thought was possibly that a coven or a festival, because we attend a number of festivals across the country, and I thought we would write to them and say, we are founding the Order of the Crone, and you may recommend individuals that you feel will be appropriate for this. Criteria have yet to be finalized, but some of them would be service to the community, knowledge and personal power, willingness to be in this position of giving advice or arbitrating in problems and that sort of thing, a willingness to serve, and possibly age. I don't see menopause, which was the traditional, one became a crone at menopause. I don't see that that's necessary, particularly in today's age when our biological functions are no longer so related to what we do. But possibly someone who at least feels comfortable in that role. But I see the main criteria to be one of service. It would need to be those women who have served or have expressed willingness to serve or have been in the path long enough to have background and not be too tied, and this I think is critical, not be too tied to any one aspect to where they cannot look at a problem openly without prejudice.
My priestess, Marie in New York of Star Crescent Circle, we've had long conversations along with her second degrees. Now, the tradition, way we do our tradition in our clan, is that a first degree initiate is a person who has come up for a year and a day at least.
Yeah.
And learned the faith, and it's basically they're now an adult in the faith, and they're recognized for that. Most people never go beyond that. If a person wants to go for second degree, in our tradition, where some traditions it's a laurels thing, you study hard and they give it to you. The degree, that it's like getting a college education. In our tradition, it's considered pastoral clergy. Okay?
That's interesting.
And if you want to be a parish priest or priestess, so to speak, and run a congregation, you come up to the high priest and say, I want to carry the sword. Fine, you're on a learner's permit. Do a good job for a year and you got it. Okay? And you know as well as I do, it's not easy.
No, it is.
It looks glamorous at first until you're sitting there trying to get everybody together for the Espats and the Sabbats and one thing and another. Nobody brings beverages for the event that you're doing, and it's a pain. People are calling you up at 3 o'clock in the morning that their husband's beating them up or their boyfriend's beating them up.
Well, this is the sort of thing, as leadership, what is seen, the visible part, the public part, is the tip of the iceberg, but it's that way with anything. As a professional artist,
no, that was the second degree.
Yeah.
Okay, now the third degree in our tradition makes that next jump to community service. Okay, and you're supposed to, like, quite literally, let go of the coven. You're supposed to become, quote, the advisor. So I've got 5 priestesses that were working under me. When I became the third degree elder, they they run their own little operations
Well,
and
now this is
franchises,
part
and
of the-
I'm strictly an advisor to them. I'm supposed to go out and write books, produce television shows.
Well, this is part of what the crone is.
Right.
The crone frequently withdraws from possibly her family. She's frequently a widow. This is her time to stabilize her own wisdom and possibly to go into retreat part of the time. There's an old phrase about making your soul, and this is possibly what the crone does. She takes this wisdom and pulls it back, it's available to the people when they need it, but she herself is no longer necessarily as active in all the aspects. She functions then as a teacher and as an arbiter and as midwife.
A mother to everybody, but a mother to nobody.
That's right. And her personal considerations are her job as being a woman now takes on a totally new aspect because she no longer is involved in raising and rearing children, if she has been, or in all of those things, getting dinner on the table and all like that. She should be at a point by that time where her intellectual and spiritual capacity is to grow. These are ideals.
Agreed.
realize.
This is
These
coming
are
back to the
ideals.
old idea. If you go back to a patriarchal concept, they used to say, well, gee whiz, somebody would come to a small village or town and say, we'd like to do such and such for your town or village. And they say, well, you'll have to talk to the city fathers.
City fathers.
Okay, in this case, we're talking the city mothers. In
That's
fact,
right.
it probably had its roots in the city mothers, but
Possibly. We won't know.
we won't know that for sure.
But as an elder, this is one of the ideas. And my idea was that then this order of crones, and they would all receive a little pin or something that they could wear when they wanted to. It's still nebulous. That from that, then say at the Heartland Festival, Memorial Day weekend, in the material that goes out ahead of time, if you belong to the Order of the Crones or are going to be initiated and would be willing to serve on the tribunal during this festival, please sign up.
Okay.
And then on the first evening of the festival, whoever is there will meet at a specified time, and there should be 3 to 5 women in attendance. And these would be available then on hopefully a scheduled basis, not just 24 hours a day for the festival, for any arbitration that is brought to them for the people who are at the festival. Could be between individuals.
That is so sorely needed.
Well, it is. Now, it's a hard job.
I know.
It's a frighteningly hard job because first off, the first given is that all the individuals involved must agree to accept what decision is handed down.
In our clan, they're required, if you come to a senior priest or priestess or an elder or a board of elders, if it's that serious and you want them to arbitrate, then you are required to sign a statement of adjudication that you will agree to the binding, and you sign on it.
Well, now, you have a much more formal
Well, we've had to do
tradition.
that. We've had
All
to
right,
do that
you've had-
so that people.
then a lot of
there's
people
never a
do.
question. No one will ever come back and say, "Well, I never agreed to do that."
That's right.
We got your
well,
signature.
I like the signature, and may I adopt that?
Please, by all means.
But many people do not have such a formalized tradition, nor do they have the advantage of a great deal of the background. A lot of people who are coming into paganism this last time, these last years, are still in paths that are very nebulous, that are very loose. They may be totally sincere, but we all have our individual path, and that may not connect with a formalized ritual path. In that case, it's got to be an agreement, and the signature is necessary. I see that, and that would be, see, I'm learning something new.
Well, I'll show you what's something where it's growing nicely. We've had some success with this show. Okay, the Camry Witches down in Atlanta contacted us, and they offered us a charter.
Yes.
So we're in the process right now of formalizing our clan traditions. We had to sit down with a computer and take all those things that were the unwritten laws, but everybody kind of agreed this is the way we want to run things, and make a charter, bylaws, all the things necessary to run our family of covens. So we could meet the requirements for tax-exempt status and everything. And this also gives us the ability for legal ordination,
Sure.
which also opens the door for us to have that thing that we've wanted for a long time, the Wiccan seminary.
Yes.
It's coming. It's coming very soon.
It's coming. It's coming. One of the things that is happening outside of the Crone energy particularly is more and more groups are getting land of their own, and that's what Nybor and I are trying to do, and get land of our own and start a small community that will then connect to the other communities across the country. And this gives us a place where nobody tells us what to do, where we can begin to formulate our life in our own way.
Well, a good example of that is the City of God out in West Virginia.
Yes.
That is a massive operation
I haven't
out there.
been there yet. They've invited us over, and I would really like to see.
We have an invitation also,
Yeah.
and I was very impressed. They have 5,000 acres. They've accumulated, 100 here, 500 there, whatever, and they grow all their own food for the most part.
Yes.
They're nearly self-sustaining. Plus they run. They've got an incredible building program going on
Yes,
out
they
there.
do, from the material that they
And
had.
it's run by the Hare Krishnas.
It was good to meet those people at Ecumenicon, and I like being associated with umbrella-type groups like Ecumenicon because it is healthy for all of us to see and accept the diversity in human beings in their spiritual strivings, and I think this is really important.
I was pleased to see that Ecumenicon did a division. There was the one group who handles the foundation now, and there's the one group who handles purely the congregational issues so that
Yes.
both tasks don't get diluted down.
I think that probably was one of the wisest things that we ever did. So.
Do you have any last kind of messages for the pagan community? Any soapbox that you've kind of wanted? I yield to you. I mean, I've respected you for many years.
Cassie.
You must have some attitudes on some things that need to be heard.
I'm disturbed by several things and gratified by several things. One thing that disturbs me is I feel it behooves us as pagans not to do Christian bashing as a way of life.
Agreed.
Be proud of what we have chosen, but realize it is not for everyone. And those people who have sincerely chosen another path, we must respect that. And I think that's really important. And the other thing is try to gain our own personal strengths through our own studies. That we, when somebody says, well, what do you worship the moon? That's a dead planet. How can you've got to have an answer. You've got to know what it is that you're feeling in here and how to express it. And I think it is good for all of us to perhaps spend some time with a journal. It helps to stabilize our thoughts. And the Crones are here. Use us.
We've been finding in a lot of cases the Crones are usually in a position to be more visible. So here we are. I'm doing this television show. Several of them are out writing books. Look at Margot Adler, look at Starhawk.
Well, Barbara, her new book on the Crone, can't think of the last name, never mind.
Well, I was talking to the folks down in Atlanta again, and they were telling me that they're next year a pagan federation is forming, and like everybody whose name was anybody was listed on, he dropped their names. They're all coming. The Bucklands, the Otto Zells, everybody.
Maybe.
Okay.
We've worked with him some, and our names are on his list. He gets over enthusiastic, so we will see how it goes. I know Otter is coming over. We've talked to him.
We've agreed to come.
Yeah, and we'll see how it goes.
Well, Elsbeth, it has been a pleasure having you here on the show. Please come back. Please come back. And we'll probably talk to you at Ecumenicon. We're going to do a show from Ecumenicon.
Good.
And it should be lots of fun. Thank you for coming to Kestryl and Company tonight, and come see us again, and hopefully Kestryl will be back soon. I'm Lady Cassandra, your guest host. Thanks for seeing us. Blessed be.
Blessed.